in the party.
Yeah. All right. Do you know the difference between a psychometric haunting and a photographic one, or a pumpkin and a jack-o'-lantern? Well, here to share more about paranormal and some of our other common Halloween traditions, we're joined this morning by psychologist Dr. Michael Friedrichs. Hey,
hello.
Nice to have you back, sir. We think of you as a psychologist. We had no idea that you were a Halloween aficionado and that you were up on all that. How did you become involved in paranormal?
Funny how that happened. I used to be an aerospace engineer during the first Gulf War. I was an officer in the Air Force, and as part of my job, I got to talk to pilots all the time. Well, one day, one of the pilots pulled me aside. He said, "You know, I was followed by one of the little green men today." And I said, "You got to be kidding me." He said, No, it happens all the time. We pilots just don't talk about it because we could lose our ability to fly." So over the course of the next couple of years,
their license would be taken away?
Yeah, they put them up in a psyche valve.
Yeah, I mean, these jets are, you know, 30, 40, 50, $100 million jets. If guys come back and say, "A little green guy followed me," you take the keys away.
Yeah, it's considered bad form.
Yeah,
so I got kind of a reputation for collecting these stories. They called me Raven, and they're like, "Oh, Raven's coming." Well, a friend said, "You know, they're pilots. You've seen Top Gun. They're making this stuff up. They're just shining you on." Well, something really amazing happened in 1990, spring. I was in the Air Force at the time. In March, the Belgian Air Force scrambled a squadron of F-16s to intercept what they thought was a UFO invasion. So it was a major event in that community. And, I mean, UFOs are real. It's a military term, unidentified flying object. We don't know what they are. But we have some really neat heads-up display information. That's the F-16 radar of these things making abrupt left turns, going from 0 to 300 knots in seconds, doing things that airplanes can't do.
And do you get description of the little green men inside the UFOs?
They were not, in that particular incident, they didn't get any photographic evidence. But, you know, these things have been around a long time. We called them, in the Bible, Ezekiel saw the wheel, flaming chariots. We've called them things throughout history, fairies. So we project our anxieties on these things. We don't know what they are.
All right. Well, now
something scaring the horses.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the common things that we associate that we can't understand. Crop circles, for example.
Yeah. Oh, who knows what that is? It's funny.
Well, it's somebody playing a joke. Didn't people admit to that?
You know, well, yeah. Though that's a whole different show altogether. I had a chance to investigate some crop circles. This is a hobby. This isn't a profession for me. But shortly after that, I was so interested in the 1990s when they were all happening. I ended up in England, and I was with a bunch of Englishmen who were doing this study.
This is like a split personality.
Yeah.
Nice, you know,
it's
easygoing.
Fun. Only on weekends.
Yeah, okay,
But some of these crop circles have a post hole in the center. It's very obvious that someone came out and did it. But, you know, with GPS now, you can draw a really cool corn maze and go out and do it.
Right.
But then again, some of them, I mean, the researchers will tell you the grain has been fundamentally changed. There's molecular changes in the... who knows what it is? I mean, it's been going around since the 1600s. There's wood cuttings of people standing in crop circles. So it's the oldest practical joke.
All right, let's go to just finding out, where did Halloween come from?
Yeah, interesting. Halloween is a great example of what we call religious syncretism. That's when great ideas from a number of cultures, religions come together. They're just such great ideas, people continue to do them. It was originally a Celtic holiday, and by this I mean the Neolithic peoples, Irish, Scottish, Welsh. When they would, it was a crosshatch between fall equinox and winter solstice. They would count how much grain they had, slaughter the animals that were left that wouldn't make it through the winter, and have a feast. People would dress up, carry on. Imagine it was a party time. But it was also considered to be their New Year's, and it was the day when the veil between this world and the next was thought to be the thinnest, so people would try to communicate with their deceased ancestors, get advice from their chieftains, and that sort of thing. It was Christianized in the 7th century by Pope Gregory, like they often did. The Romans were very wise than the Holy Roman Empire after that. They just co-opted whatever they took over. So they said, well, people are celebrating this, let's call it All Souls Day. And the night before was All Hallows Eve. So they basically Christianized it, and that brought in the idea of demons and devils and that sort of thing.
And in Mexico, don't they celebrate this like the Day of the Dead?
Absolutely.
I mean, they're more into the dead part of it, right?
Well, it's really a life celebration, my understanding. But these death celebrations are worldwide. You find them all around the world. I mean, Native Americans did it. The Taraja Indians dig up the dead once a year and talk to them.
Okay, so now we come into our more common traditions here. Carving the pumpkins, we showed some earlier, jack-o'-lanterns on the porch, that sort of thing. What's the history behind that?
Well, the most common story that's told about jack-o'-lanterns is that now pumpkins, you know, are not indigenous to Ireland. So people say, oh, they come from Ireland. The story is about a guy named Stingy Jack, who is kind of a character who would rob people and steal things and so on. And the devil came to take him finally. And he ran up a tree, and the devil followed him. And he, being a clever Irishman, he jumped out of the tree and put crosses around the tree, and so the devil was trapped in this tree. And the devil said, look, if you let me down, I won't take your soul when you die. Well, the problem is that Jack eventually died. They didn't want him in heaven either. So he was forced to walk between worlds in the dark. And the devil, being a devil's advocate, carved a turnip, put a piece of hellfire in it, a piece of brimstone, and said, "This will help you light your way, old chum." And when the Irish came during the Great Potato Famine in 1840, they brought all these traditions with them to the States, and then they said, wow, pumpkins make much better lanterns.
Oh, interesting.
I did not know
now, back to more of the paranormal. Ghosts.
Yes.
Ghosts, that's a big part of Halloween.
Yes, it is.
Do you think they're real?
34% of Americans do. Very difficult to research because they're fiercely subjective experiences. I mean, if you're walking down the highway and an 18-wheeler with a dead driver picked you up like that country song, who would believe that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't research that. But parapsychologists tell me that this sort of thing is real because a lot of what's happening is far more than what science can simply explain. And we do have some research on it. But
poltergeists. What?
Yeah. Well, poltergeists are, I'm told, much different than your sort of traditional haunting, which the majority of which are what we call photographic hauntings. In other words, there's sort of a rift in space and time. Something that happened before is just happening again, and you're seeing kind of the two-dimensional movie of it. That's why the ghosts don't notice you're there, they don't respond. Poltergeist activity is characterized by its violent nature. So people who study this will tell you fires will break out, glasses will shatter, people will be scratched. The conventional thought of that is that it's an adolescent in the house. Their energy, I know you like to joke about your adolescent. Their energy is causing this to happen, and that when the adolescent leaves, the poltergeist activity usually stops.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's probably true. The most unexplained occurrences in our home usually go back to the kids. Exactly. Very interesting.
Michael, thank you so much.
Dr. Michael Friedrichs, thank you so much.
That's fascinating.